Good evening, friends. Welcome you all once again on an important G20 related event tomorrow and day after, Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group. To give you further details about this, we have Madam Richa Sharma, Assistant Secretary, and Mr. Naresh Pal Ganguvar, Assistant Secretary, Additional Secretary, and Mr. Bivas Ranjan, ADG Forest, and Mr. Ashish Sinha, JSMEA. And before I hand over the mic to Madam, I thank you all for extending excellent cooperation and giving good coverage over this period. Hope the same cooperation continues. Thank you, ma'am.
नमस्ते आज की इस ब्रीफिंग में आप सभी का स्वागत है आई वेलकम यू ऑल टू दिस मीडिया ब्रीफिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट फॉरेस्ट एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज today's briefing will focus on the fourth meeting of the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group as well as the ministerial. It's been 8 months since India took over the G20 presidency. And as the presidency, India has been leading the G20 discussions on many important global issues spanning across different sectors. And these are issues that require cooperation of the G20 for results. Within the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group, you're aware that this is a part of the Sherpa track. The G20 work is organized along 2 different tracks. One track is the finance ministers and central bank governors track, and they discuss several global financial issues. And the other is the Sherpa track, within which there are many different working groups, such as on agriculture, on anti-corruption, on education. And one of the working groups is about environment and climate sustainability. Now, under India's G20 presidency, many meetings of different working groups have been held across the length and breadth of the country. And today's, the meeting that we will start tomorrow in Chennai is the 4th in the series of meetings which our working group on environment and climate sustainability has held since February. So our first meeting started in February. And in July, we are concluding our work with the meeting of the ministers of the G20. So the purpose of the media briefing today is to explain the work that we have done so far within the G20 in our discussions on climate and environment. Why these particular issues have been chosen for discussion. What India itself is doing in terms of the thematic priorities that it has chosen to highlight and prioritize in the G20. And certainly the most important bit is about the meeting of the G20 Environment and Climate Ministers on the 28th. Next, please. So the thematic priorities of the ECSWG, you can see reflected on the screen. So colleagues, you know that the world faces many climate and environmental challenges. Climate change obviously is one of them, but so is biodiversity loss, pollution, and desertification, amongst others. Now, each of these problems requires not just a strong domestic response, but it also requires strong international cooperation between the G20, as we are the world's major economies. So we have chosen topics within these broad thematic areas that are relevant to all the G20 countries. As an example, we have chosen the topic of blue economy because all the G20 countries are coastal countries. And also we have chosen some very new issues that have not been discussed in much detail earlier. For example, we have discussed, land degradation due to forest fires and land degradation due to abandoned mining sites, etc. So we've brought in new thematic priorities for discussion within this G20. Now, climate change has been addressed as a cross-cutting issue across the three thematic priorities of land degradation, ecosystem restoration, biodiversity and water resources, sustainable and resilient blue and ocean-based economy, and resource efficiency and circular economy. Lifestyles for environment, sustainable consumption and production is extremely important, and it has been a part of our deliberations and discussions throughout the working group meeting so far. Next, please. So this reflects the summit time, the ECSWG and the G20 summit timelines. As I mentioned, India assumed the G20 presidency on 1st of December 2022. And the meetings of the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group started in February. So the first meeting happened in Bengaluru. The second meeting happened in March in Gandhinagar. The third meeting happened in Mumbai. And we are having the fourth meeting in Chennai. The ministers' meeting will also happen in Chennai. And all of our work will lead up finally to the summit, G20 Leaders Summit, which will happen in Delhi on 9th and 10th of September. So all the different working groups, whether under the Sherpa track or under the Central Bank Governors and Finance Ministers track, will conclude their work. And after that, the Leaders Summit is going to be held in Delhi. Next. So I'll just give you a brief snapshot of the work that we've been doing so far, because that helps us understand what is it that we want to do in Chennai. So we started our work in Bengaluru. So in Bengaluru, which was the first meeting, we introduced the themes that we wanted to take up, and we got broad support of the G20 to the thematic priorities that has been selected by India. We also organized site visits to the Banerghetta National Park and the Kalkere Arboretum in Bengaluru. And the reason was that the thematic priority in the Bengaluru meeting was land degradation, biodiversity enhancement, etc. And this Kalkere Arboretum was unique in the sense that all the 4 unique forest ecosystems of Karnataka can be seen at this one location. This one location also showcases the restoration effects for revival of biodiversity. So, but we see it in action, in practical examples through thematic site visits. So that is how we have organized all our meetings of the working groups. So there are practical, there are thematic discussions that are in room within conference and meeting halls, but also practical examples of those issues outside through thematic excursion visits. And of course, because our meetings are being held in different states of the country, then the unique art and crafts, culture and heritage of that state are also showcased to the international delegates that are attending. So that's how all these working group meetings are being organized. Next, please. The second meeting happened in Gandhinagar. In Gandhinagar, our key focus was on water, integrated water resources management. In that meeting, many important presentations were made. As an example, this is the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and India's flagship Namami Gange program. It received the World Flagship Restoration Initiative Award from the UN Environment Program. It's called the World Flagship Restoration Initiative Award of the UN Environment Program that was granted to the Namami Gange project of India. And so there was a presentation on that. The attainment of SDGs is extremely critical, and one of them is SDGs related to drinking water provisioning. And presentation on the Jal Jeevan mission in India was made at this. There was a big, a pavilion was also organized at the site of the meeting, in which different water-related initiatives of the government of India and of Gujarat, where this meeting was being held, were showcased. In Gujarat, we took the delegates to thematic site visits to Adalaj Vav, which is the ancient stepwell system in Gujarat, and it was fascinating for the G20 delegates to see the water conservation systems, that were operational in India since, historically. And of course, in modern times, they were taken to see the Sabarmati siphon and escape on Narmada main canal, and how this the Narmada water project has led to water availability in arid areas of the country. So it was a very constructive meeting in which the thematic discussions were taken forward through a meeting of this working group. Next. So the third meeting happened in Mumbai, and in third meeting, the third thematic priority of the presidency with regard to the sustainable and resilient ocean or ocean-based or blue economy. And according to that, we had several events. The most important one was the mega beach cleanup event that we organized. Um, uh, Honorable Prime Minister of India has given the call for Mission Life or Lifestyles for Environment, and one of the and that is related to how individual actions, though small in scale, can add to create a big impact on helping us move towards climate and environment sustainability. So we organized a mega beach cleanup event, and this was not just domestically, but also across many different G20 and invited countries. This was a very big event in which I can share with you the exact details of the level of participation we had in the mega beach cleaning efforts. We had a participation of from 15 G20 countries and 7 countries from the list of invited countries. It was a very interesting event in the sense that the beach cleaning started from the beaches in Japan on 21st of May. Then other countries following that, Australia, Indonesia joined in, India, followed by others, in terms of the time zones. So all on 21st of May, these, besides India, the countries that participated were Argentina, Australia, Canada, Germany, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Republic of Korea, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, UK, USA. Then invited countries also participated. In fact, in some countries like South Africa and the United States, the beach cleaning events were organized in more than one beach. In the US, in fact, it happened in Washington, D.C., Houston, San Francisco, Atlanta, New York, and Chicago. So during this beach cleaning event, we saw the participation certainly of the local community, but also of, dignitaries like mayors of cities and others. So Indian missions and embassies abroad, they participated in a big way in organizing these events at the international level. And the idea was that to draw attention to the growing problem of marine litter, including marine plastic litter. So what are the sustainable alternatives available and how we should prevent littering and the impact that such litter has on the oceans. So that was the theme of the event. Domestically, this was a very big event as well. We organized it in all the 13 coastal states and union territories, and I'll share the details of the domestic level participation. Around 18,000 people participated, and quite a lot of litter was collected, and it was sent to the recyclers where feasible. So we also organized an Ocean 20 dialogue in Mumbai, and that dialogue brought together scientists, academicians, practitioners, experts, from UN organizations all together to discuss issues related to science, technology, and innovation, policy, governance, and participation, and how to finance the activities related to blue economy. So the first Ocean 20 dialogue was started by Indonesia, and different G20 presidencies are expected to provide continuity. So we thought that this was a very, very important theme, considering that the blue economy is so important to India. We need to have discussions on how to build in sustainability into the ocean-based economic activities, and therefore we continued to, we had the second Ocean 20 dialogue, if I can put it that way, after Indonesia. So we provided that continuity which this theme required. Next, please. So we also set up many pavilions at the site of the Environment Climate Sustainability Working Group meetings. At the first meeting in Bengaluru, there were 5 pavilions which this ministry itself set up on different areas, and 5 were set up by the government of Karnataka. At the second ECSWG meeting in Gandhinagar, as I mentioned, that the theme was water. So 12 stalls were set up by the Ministry of Jal Shakti, 3 by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and a big one by the government of Gujarat. A third ECSWG meeting in Mumbai, there was stalls from the Ministry of Earth Sciences because the issue was ocean-based blue economy. There were stalls by the Ministry of Rural Development and also by the government of Maharashtra. And at the meeting that we are going to have in Chennai, we will have a pavilion on life. In fact, life pavilions were there on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in all the other 3 meetings as well. So we'll have a life pavilion in Chennai also, which is Lifestyles for Environment. It's been of great interest to the delegates that are coming, because they're curious about what is Mission Life, what can be the possible impact of small behavioral changes on problems as big as the environment and climate. So that's the pavilion that we will have for the ministers to also see this time. There will be a pavilion on Project Tiger. We've recently marked 50 years of Project Tiger. And so and it's been one of the most successful species conservation efforts. And we'll also have 13 pavilions on handicrafts at this Chennai meeting. Next, please. So for the ministers and the G20 delegates, there will be a thematic site visit to the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Mahabalipuram with a projection and the dance show. The government of Tamil Nadu will be represented by the Honorable Minister for Industries, Dr. T.R.B. Raja, and Honorable Minister of Finance as well. So this is expected to give, as I mentioned, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. All the ministers will get to see this event over there. Next, please. So these are coming back to the thematic discussions that we were having. We expect to develop the G20 high-level principles for a sustainable and resilient blue or ocean-based economy. So the ocean-based economy has many, many things. For example, there is aquaculture, there is shipping and ports, there is obviously fisheries, there is beach tourism, there is ocean-based energy sources. So there are multiple ocean economic sectors, and there are, of course, competing demands on the coastal and marine space, and how to undertake those activities sustainably so that the ocean economy thrives and flourishes is the objective of these. So these principles are meant to be used by the G20 countries on a voluntary basis. But also across the 3 thematic areas, many presidency technical documents are being prepared. The work of the G20, it may appear that it is happening in a conference-based mode alone in meeting halls, but what is the technical work leading up, assisting those discussions? So this is a reflection of all the technical work that is being undertaken across the 3 thematic priorities. And you will hear details of this in the following slides on the technical presidency documents that are coming up. So details will be shared in the forthcoming slides. Next, please. So it's very important for any G20 presidency to ensure that the discussions in the G20 are consensus driven. They have to be comprehensive and integrated, inclusive and action oriented. We are a group of developed and developing countries, and there are different national priorities and national circumstances, and therefore it's very important that the decisions we take, the outcomes that we develop, are developed through an inclusive and a consultative process. So this just shows the sequence in which our work has been progressing. We've had virtual meetings as well as 3 physical meetings in the 3 working groups, but we've together done about 300 hours of virtual meetings as well from February till now. So all of that has gotten into the development of these technical documents and other outcome documents. Next, please. So the 4th ECSWG meeting agenda, the meeting begins tomorrow, Wednesday, 26th of July, and there will be parallel sessions that we will start in 2 rooms. In one room, climate change issues will be discussed. In the other room, the environment issues will be discussed on land degradation, biodiversity, water resources management, resource efficiency, and circular economy. And on the other side, we will discuss climate change, blue economy, and the high-level principles. So those are the discussions that will go over 2 days. So the officials or the delegates will complete all the work, and then this will be presented to the ministers on the next day on the ministerial. There is an extremely important side event that is being held tomorrow evening on the launch of the REC Industry, Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy Industry Coalition. The details of this will be shared with you in a subsequent slide. Next, please. So the ministerial meeting will start from 9 o'clock on 28th. It will finish at 4 o'clock. There would be interventions by the ministers on the 3 thematic priorities that have been identified by the Indian G20 presidency. You can see the details here. We will have keynote speeches from 5 speakers. The UN Environment Program Executive Director Inger Anderson will be the first keynote speaker. There will, there will be an address by the Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Mr. Simon Steele. There will also be an address by the COP28 President-designate Sultan Al-Jaber. So these are the 3 thematic keynote speakers for the first thematic session. In the second thematic session, there would be keynote speeches by the Executive Secretary of the UN CCT, Mr. Ibrahim Theo, and also by the CBD. The designation is. So there isn't a full-time, executive secretary at this time. The official holding the charge. There'll be a keynote speech from the CBD as well. And in the CBD, it's extremely important that in December, the historic Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework has been adopted. India, our discussions of the ministers feature the biodiversity issue in a big way. So an address by the CBD will be extremely important. So this is how, and then there would be a concluding session with the adoption of the communique, chair summary outcome document, as the case may be. Next. This is just to give you a snapshot of the level of participation in the meetings of the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group. G20, of course, the member countries, all the 19 member countries plus the EU will be represented by their ministers, mostly, and in 1 or 2 cases at most, if the minister is unable to come, he is being represented by a deputy minister. In some countries, we are having more than 1 minister attending, such as from the United Kingdom, we have 2 ministers attending. From Japan, we have 2 different ministers attending. So we have extensive participation at the ministerial level for our meeting. India has invited many guest countries, 9 of them, and 12 international and regional organizations. And all of these perspectives of the guest countries and of the international and regional organizations, add a lot of depth to the discussions within the G20. And you can see that all the important international organizations, such as the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the UNFCCC, the CBD, the Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, MDBs like Asian Development Bank, World Bank, the International Renewable Energy Agency, all of these international and UN agencies whose work is relevant to the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group have been invited to participate in the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group meetings. Now, most important, I'd like to draw your attention to the extent of participation of the delegates. If you see, it has been increasing consistently. We had participation of 124 at the first working group meeting. Then it rose to 130 in the second meeting, 139 in the third meeting. And for this fourth and final meeting in Chennai, we already have a registration of 190 delegates. And for the ministerial meeting, because the ministers would also join in, 225 persons overall would be attending. So we think that the success of the presidency also, the physical meetings of the G20 have only resumed recently. So we think that it's extremely, it's an indication of success, the level of participation and interest that we have been able to secure for the thematic priorities that we are driving. Next, please. I invite my colleague ADG, Mr. Bibash Ranjan, to speak about provide updates on the land and biodiversity theme.
Thank you, Richaji, and good evening to all. One of the thematic area for the G20 meeting under the Environment and Climate Sustainability Working Group is the land restorations, accelerating ecosystem-based approach, and biodiversity conservations. It also includes water conservations. So for the first time in the country, in the G20 countries meeting, the priority of the landscapes have been chosen to get it restored ecologically till the establishment of keystone species. So drivers of the restoration has been chosen like forest fire affected areas and the mine impacted areas. The rationale behind choosing these two landscapes is the gradual increase of the forest fire incidences since last decades and the loss of forest cover and tree cover from the wildfire has gone up many folds. Not only India is affecting, but the global, all the countries are affecting from the forest fire. Similarly, on the mine impacted areas, the mined out area is not being properly reclaimed. So, how these mine reclamations can be accelerated? These two are the primary priority thematic area for ecological restorations. And the best part of this G20 meeting is we have collated the information on the best practices of these areas from all the countries, and we are coming with the compendium on how these other countries are able to restore the thematic priorities landscapes. We have also come about the two structural tools and functional tools to get it monitored voluntarily that how these degraded landscapes are being restored. This is the first G20 meeting after the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So how this Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is being adopted, mapped, and biodiversity enrichment is being done. So entire G20 country was the consensus that mapping of the targets of the GBF or Global Biodiversity Framework has to be done through G20, and we are successfully mapped the targets vis-a-vis landscape restorations. And the third major aspect in this area is how to monitor that whether the land is being restored. Again, India is championed in restoring the landscapes through restoring the keystone species as the indicators. We have the successful launch of the Project Tiger, Project Lion, Project Elephant. So the keystone species in any of the landscape, if it is established, then we claim that the degraded land is restored. So these are the basic themes of this area, and we are achieving towards the end of this thematic priorities. Thank you, Richard. Again, when we see the statistics, can you go to the back slides?
Previous.
Yeah. When you see the ambitions, India has committed to restore the 26 million hectares of the forest land and creating 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional carbon stock sinks. This can be achieved when the degraded land of the chosen priority is being restored ecologically. Similarly, we have the successful example of the Project Tigers, Project Elephant, what we said earlier. So this is the reason that we have chosen these landscapes. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Rishaji. Good evening. So I will very briefly tell you about the work done under REC theme by our subgroup. Under this theme, we have worked on 4 focus areas, namely circular economy in steel, extended producer responsibility, circular bioeconomy, resource efficiency, and circular economy industrial coalition. And we have prepared 4 presidency documents in consultation with our knowledge partners, industries, industry association, and all the member G20 countries. About 60 hours of discussions during 3 ECSWG meetings and various virtual meetings in between has taken place on these issues, and we have already peer-reviewed the documents which have been prepared after extensive consultation, and these documents will be released on 28th July during the ministerial meeting of the G20 member countries. One of the significant initiative which Presidency has taken during our work on REC theme is establishment of this REC industry coalition. 35 industries from India, Japan, USA, and EU have joined this coalition as founding member, and this is going to be launched on the sideline of this ministerial meeting day after tomorrow in the evening. by our Honorable Minister for Environment, Mr. Bhupendra Yadav Sahab, in presence of various G20 member countries' ministers and other invitees. So this has been a significant outcome from our work under REC themes. Next slide, please. Next. So I would like to highlight few of the initiatives which have been captured by the documents which we have developed during our work, particularly from India. So one of the schemes which have been highlighted under a presidency document on circular economy is about Govardhan, where 500 biogas plants have been set up with 300 tons capacity in 152 districts across the country. The document also highlights some of the technologies which have been developed by ICAR for using crop residue and other crop waste for developing various products, valuable products. So our document on EPR highlights the EPR portal which we have been put in place in India for plastic packaging, where more than 21,000 PIBOs have got and more than 2,000 PWPs have got registered, and that EPR obligation of these PIBOs put together is around 3.071 million tons of plastic, which is around 70% of the plastic waste being generated in the country. Next. Some of the initiatives which we have taken, you might be aware that from 1st July last year, we selected the single-use plastic items. EPR framework in plastic packaging and for e-waste and also for tire have been put in place, and that is being implemented. Some of the other policy initiatives which have been highlighted, which I would like to highlight, is PM-JEevan Yojana, which aims to promote bioenergy and provide financial support to the integrated bioethanol project for setting up second generation ethanol projects which produce bioethanol. You also might be aware that we have already achieved 10% blending target of ethanol in petrol, and we are targeting to blend 20% ethanol by 2030. Two major programs, one of the major program which have been announced during this budget is Green Credit Program. The Green Credit Program framework is also being put in place. Tamil Nadu also has done some good work in circular economy. Tamil Nadu has I think the oldest e-waste processing facilities and in the state, and more than 38 waste recyclers are functional. Mahindra World City, you might be aware that it is the first Indian city to receive zero waste landfill certification, and it generates 40 tons of compost at 300 kgs of biocost per month, and is powered by renewable energy. So I would end here, and I hand over to Richa for taking proceedings further.
So this is an update on the blue/ocean-based economy, which was a third thematic priority under the Climate and Environment Working Group under the Indian G20 presidency. Next, please. So as I mentioned, we are working towards developing G20 high-level principles on a sustainable ocean-based economy. We organized the G20 Ocean Dialogue, which I mentioned, to discuss the best practices for blue asset management and finance. The mega beach cleanup activity I mentioned, but now I would like to focus on what was done, at the domestic level. At the domestic level, we had organized on the same day across all the 13 coastal states and union territories, and this beach cleanup was done in 32 beaches, and where local communities, students, etc. participated in the beach cleaning initiative. Almost 18,000 volunteers participated. It led to the collection of about 37,000 kilograms of litter and waste. And in Tamil Nadu, the beach cleaning drive took place across 3 beaches, in Kanyakumari, in the Chengalpattu district in Kovalam, and also in the Basantanagar beach in Chennai district. And in Tamil Nadu, it was the Environment and Forest Minister of Tamil Nadu and the Health Minister of Tamil Nadu that led this, the beach cleaning efforts, along with the ACS of the Government of Tamil Nadu and Commissioner of the Chennai Corporation, and they led the beach cleanup effort with the participation of a large number of students. And so this is just an example of the involvement of the state of Tamil Nadu also in the mega beach cleaning efforts. We are also preparing, as I mentioned, a G20 report on actions against marine plastic litter. First, during when Japan held the presidency of the G20, they prepared a first report on what is happening in the G20, what kind of policies do they have, what kind of action plans do they have, what kind of targets do they have with regard to combating marine plastic litter. So the first report came out by Japan during Japan's presidency under the Osaka Blue Ocean Vision. Then the successive presidencies after Japan have continued to update that report. So the Indian G20 presidency is bringing out the 5th edition of the report on the framework of actions in the G20 against marine plastic litter. And this is a report which has inputs from almost 40 G20 countries as well as international organizations, the guest countries, etc. And this captures a range of policies, initiatives, challenges which these countries are facing when it comes to tackling the marine plastic litter. So all the G20 presidency documents which my colleagues talked about would be uploaded on the G20 website as soon as in the ministerial these documents are formally launched, and they would be available for everybody then to see and use as appropriate. Next. So as I mentioned that we've chosen themes that are of global importance, but also ones in which India itself is undertaking, has launched a lot of policies and programs at the national level. So under the Blue Economy priority, if I were to mention just a few of them, I would like to mention the Deep Ocean Mission. It's an about 4,000 crore project that was launched in 2021, aimed at exploring the deep ocean resources and also to support climate change advisory services. The Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana has been launched, which aims to increase fish production by 20% by 24 to 25. It's one of the very important objectives of a sustainable blue economy. This project also aims to create 10 million jobs in the sector and reduce the post-harvest losses by 50%. Coastal and marine spatial planning is also an extremely important issue. The coastal and the marine environment has many competing demands, from aquaculture, mariculture, from ports and shipping, from tourism, and others. So how should the coastal and marine space be used in a comprehensive and integrated manner? What's the kind of planning approach that should be undertaken? So those all happen through the coastal and marine spatial planning. So, that work has been initiated, it's underway for Puducherry and Lakshadweep, but to develop a coastal and marine spatial plan for the entire coastline of mainland India and the islands, a draft document for that has been prepared by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change on how this should be undertaken. India for one whole decade implemented a project called Integrated Coastal Zone Management Project, and this was a project that had many firsts in terms of demonstrating what sustainability means for coastal management. And this resulted in many important outcomes, and the most important of which I think pertains to the state of Tamil Nadu. India's National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management was set up under the ICZM project. Besides that, under this project, over 16,000 hectares of mangrove plantation was carried out in the Gulf of Kutch area, coral transplantation around 1,200 square kilometers, coastal and marine pollution monitoring abilities of specific state control boards was announced that were a part of this project. There were many other activities, one of which, of course, was to boost beach tourism and conservation of marine ecosystems. 12 beaches have been developed as per the Blue Flag criteria. You would all have heard of the Blue Flag certification. In fact, Tamil Nadu was the first state which had the first Blue Flag certified beach. I think it was Kovalam. That was the ICZM project, and of course, Mishti is a very, very important project. You are all aware of the role of mangroves in climate, in water quality regulation, in adaptation to climate change, how they also provide for fish breeding, etc. So mangroves have a big role to play. Most importantly, in carbon sequestration, they sequester far more carbon than terrestrial forests and have a big role to play in adaptation to climate change as well. So this Mishti project was announced in the union budget this year, and it envisages restoration of about over 540 square kilometers of mangroves across 9 states and 4 union territories. In the state of Tamil Nadu also, there is an intent to increase the mangrove cover. The state government intends to do that, increase mangrove cover of about 60 square kilometers under this. So you would be aware that the National Center for Coastal Research is also located in the state of Tamil Nadu. And there are many activities which this NCCR has done with the government of Tamil Nadu. For example, the shoreline change atlas of the entire Tamil Nadu coast has been developed. So, at some places, because of shoreline erosion, there is accretion. At some places, the shoreline is fairly stable, but at other places, there is, accreting, eroding, or stable coasts. So, all of that coastline change atlas for Tamil Nadu has been made. Also, development operational flood warning system in Chennai called iFlows Chennai has been developed by the NCCR. Coastal inundation risk atlas for the Tamil Nadu coast has been developed by NCCR. Prediction of coastal water quality for beaches in Chennai, that's also work that has been done by the NCCR. And an app, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, it's called Thundal app for the safety of fishers. So that's also been developed by the NCCR. Tamil Nadu, of course, in terms of combating marine plastic litter, has come out with the initiative of the yellow cloth back ATMs. Not being a native Tamil speaker, I may not be able to pronounce it correctly, but there are ATMs where the cloth bags are being dispensed in order to replace, plastic. Yeah, that's right. Correct. And I would also like to mention that Tamil Nadu is one of those states with the largest number of Ramsar sites in the country. They've added 13. They had only one earlier, but they've done a lot of work in wetlands as well. Next, please. So I think we wanted to just, inform you about the issues that have been taken up for discussions under the G20 presidency of India. We wanted to share with you why those specific topics were chosen. We wanted to share with you the process through which those discussions have happened and the outcomes towards which we intend to move. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sirs, for the nice and detailed presentation. Now we would like to take a few questions from you. Those who wish to raise any question, please raise your hands. Yeah, Krishna, pass on the mic.
Ma'am, for last few G20 summits, the common point where the countries have agreed upon is the restoration of degraded land. So we have shown the targets, but what exactly is the tangible results India has achieved or the G20 countries have achieved so far in this last maybe 5 or 6 years? Do you have a figure to it? How much we have already restored and those details?
Thank you. Very interesting questions. See, since 2008, the G20 annual meeting began. For the first time, the restoration of landscapes has taken importance in the Saudi presidency, and they started through initiatives, global land initiatives under UNCCD to get the area monitored voluntarily, that we call GLI. So it is the mandate of the UNCCD to get the area monitored whether the land restoration is being done or not. Number one. Number two, under the UN decade of restorations, 50% of the degraded land of the country have to be restored by 2040. So this is the second mandate where all the countries in the globe has committed that 50% has to be restored. India has chosen two different priorities of the landscapes. The reason was These landscapes are originally the biodiversity rich areas, whether it is a rich forest fire areas or the mining areas. So if these two category of degraded land is being restored, so biological enrichment by a biodiversity enrichment will automatically be done. So we will fulfill two commitments. One, restoring the ecological landscapes. Number two, we will also achieve the global biodiversity framework targets. So this is the mandated with the GLI. Thank you. And till date, GLI has not come with any reports. So based on their failures, rather, we, India has proposed to name two institutes, Indian Institute of Forest Management and ICFRE for the mining area, IFM for the forest fire area, to get the landscapes monitored that how much area is being restored.
Anybody?
We have also conceptualized the issue of implementation's roadmap. We have coined the term that how these restoration practices be achieved and how it could be achieved. So we have developed a structural tool as well as the functional tool to monitor the restoration's progress voluntarily.
So
Thank you.
These work, how much of area we are already implementing? Is there any estimate on that in India at least?
See, when we see the statistics, 38% of the mining area have been reclaimed by India, right? And 27% of the forest area is the forest fire prone area. So these are very, very sensitive areas which has to be restored, which has to be taken care of in future. Thank you.
I have two questions. The first one is about that framework of action against marine litter. In that, we are talking about the policies, we are talking about the challenges faced. But what about, will it also have details about the solutions and what kind of policy implementations will be done? And will we see these implementations in the coming year with specific targets? That is my first question. Second question is regarding land and forest degradation. This is also to do with the current bill, that is the Forest Conservation Act Amendment Bill, which is in the Lok Sabha right now. So I also wanted to ask, there is a lot of talk about how the mineral-rich areas might be avoided, like the degraded lands will not be part of forest. They can be easily used for other purposes. That is one of the major contentions of various conservationists. So any update on that? Thank you.
So, on the G20 fifth report on the framework of actions against marine plastic litter, indeed, yes, there was there's a longish questionnaire that was circulated to all the G20 countries, as well as the invited guest countries and countries beyond the G20 as well, actually. Not just the G20 and the guest countries that we have invited, but countries beyond this group also, and many international organizations. And yes, it does contain information about the policies in those countries that are currently underway or might be under development or planned with regard to a series of policies relating to litter, whether it is waste management related to plastic specifically or about circular economy. So all of those details you will get to see with regard to all of these countries in this report that will be uploaded on the 28th on the G20 site.
So far your second question is concerned. Yes. Ecology and economy has to go together, right? So I am initially in the response of the first questions I answered, the 38% of the mining impacted area have been reclaimed, meaning thereby 62% is still unreclaimed. So my priority through this G20 is to reclaim this 62% of India, and 57% of global degraded land has to be restored. We are the only country who mines only 3% of the global mining index. Remaining 57% is being mined by 5 countries. So we have focused to restore the other landscapes in other countries as well as in our country. So far the forest conservation bill is concerned, it is already in the parliament. Let it, the debate should go on. Then we will respond to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody? See that?
Hello. Yeah. So I just want to check with you. How do you expect to get a common ground? Because there's usually differences between the developed and developing countries. Because those who were part of the first industrial revolution fare, sort of better on the environment and climate sustainability. Whereas countries like India, who are developing and still need a lot of resources for development, are not faring as well as the other countries do. So how is there a common ground that you envision for this?
That's the purpose of the discussions. The challenges that we face are global in nature. Every country must do its part in helping move towards a solution, and the purpose of the discussions indeed is to arrive at common ground, and I would say that we are making very good progress in that. And it's, each country appreciates the other's national circumstances and challenges, and the purpose of the G20 is that we recognize each other's challenges and yet resolve to continue to work towards the common goals on climate change and environment sustainability.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.